Namaskar.
Namaste.
Mandar. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. So we are here together today to talk a little bit about food rules, okay, in the perspective of Ayurveda.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is right.
Yeah, okay. So I have some questions for you. I hope you can help us understanding.
Sure.
So the first question is, through this series you were explaining Swasthavritta, prevention of diseases and maintenance of healthiness. So far you have explained daily regime and seasonal regime.
That is right.
But besides these two, is there any other important factor contributing for health?
Yes, of course. Because Ayurveda is not just a medical science, as you know. Ayurveda is a life science. So it covers a broad spectrum, not just diseases. So as you ask, besides daily regime and seasonal regime, according to Ayurveda, there are many other factors which are very important for maintenance of healthiness. For example, water consumption, the way in which we consume, the time at which we consume, everything matters for maintenance of health. Sleep patterns, the number of hours we sleep, etc., they also matter a lot towards health. Sex life also matters a lot about health. And last but not the least, food is a very, very important factor contributing to the health. So as you asked, whether this is besides daily regime and seasonal regime, the precise answer will be, it is not besides, it is inclusive. That means daily regime, that is dinacharya, as you know, or seasonal regime, that is rutucharya, they are not separate from food, water, sex and sleep, right? They are intermingled, means these concepts are intermingled. So when Ayurveda explains us daily regime, it includes directives about food, water, sleep, etc. Similarly, when Ayurveda recommends some seasonal tips like seasonal regime, it also comments about food, water, sleeps, and also the sex life.
Okay, thank you. So, can you briefly indicate Ayurvedic perspective about food?
Why not? I will surely indicate, because according to our understanding, probably Ayurveda has the maximum contribution about role of food in maintenance of healthiness. So I will briefly try to say Ayurvedic perspective about food. First of all, because Ayurveda has its roots in the Vedic literature, I hope you have heard about Vedas, the Indian knowledge treasure. So because Ayurveda has roots in the Vedic literature, Ayurveda had borrowed the concepts from Vedic literature about food. For example, Veda considers that food is not something to be consumed, not just for enjoying or eating or drinking, consuming. Veda considers food is like a mission. I hope you are getting the difference, right? So it's a holy thing, or it's a sacred process, not just consumption. So first point I would like to insist upon from Ayurvedic perspective is food is not just something to be consumed, it's a mission, right? Second point, which is very important and many Ayurvedic students, they already know, Ayurveda believes that life is balanced on three pillars. They are called as Upastambha in Sanskrit, but we will keep aside Sanskrit words. So for convenience of viewers. So Ayurveda believes that the life is balanced on three pillars. And all the pillars are equally important. You can compare it with a tripod having three legs. If one leg is damaged, entire tripod will collapse. Similarly, Ayurveda believes that even if one of the three pillars gets damaged, the entire life is imbalanced. And these three pillars are food, sleep, and sex. So the second perspective about food is one of the three pillars of life. The third perspective is very interesting and useful for everyone, for every viewer, everyone who watches or listens to this. There is a simple quotation in Sanskrit, which I will not go into Sanskrit or technical details, but I'll simplify by saying the third Ayurvedic perspective. It says, you are what you eat. That means your body is made up of food, what you consume. Obviously, you have to be careful about what you consume, right? Because accordingly, your body will grow, develop, and may have diseases if you consume wrong food. So if you are enlisting, first perspective is food is mission. Second is food is one of the three important pillars of life. Third perspective is you are what you eat. Means your body is made up of your food. And the fourth one is food is not just something. Food is life. So almost all the factors related to life like healthiness, disease, longevity, vigor, vitality, all of them are basically directly or indirectly depending upon the food. So food is life is the Ayurvedic perspective.
Ayurvedic understanding about food includes how many aspects for you?
Okay, thanks for going into the details because viewers will get a lot out of this the response to this question. You are asking about Ayurvedic understanding about food, right?
Right.
As already said, Ayurveda considers food as a mission, not just something to be consumed. So Ayurveda studies food from different aspects. The first aspect is, of course, scientific. So I'll just name it. I will not go into the details in this episode. And this aspect is Ayurveda studies qualities, or you can say attributes, of each and every food item which was known to them. Right? Each and every food item had been studied thoroughly, and the qualities or attributes have been quoted in the text. Not only attributes, but even their functions, means the outcome of that food, if we consume, what will happen to us, is also quoted in the text. So that's a great treasure of knowledge, qualities and functions of food. But because that's a technical subject which we at AMAYUR teach to the students, so I will not go into the details in this episode, right? The second aspect is, this is also very interesting. Unlike some other medical sciences, Ayurveda does not hold microorganisms responsible for our diseases. This is very interesting. In the current situation, it should please be noted by the viewers, right? Ayurveda says that for most of the diseases, actually our wrong selection of food may be a cause. Are you getting me? So the cause of diseases most probably is in the food. So this is the second aspect. Then the third aspect is, obviously, according to the diseases, there should be some rules and regulations about food, which are called as do's and don'ts. Means suppose if I am obese, fortunately I am not, but suppose I am obese, fat, which food I should consume and which food I should avoid. So Ayurveda has a big list according to different diseases, right? So I think it's a great guidance to the health seekers or all the people on the globe, right? Do's and don'ts as per the diseases. So this is the third aspect about food. Interestingly, Ayurveda believes that the food itself can be used for treatment purpose, therapeutic purpose. I would like to reiterate here what Hippocrates had said a couple of centuries ago in Europe, the famous quotation. And the quotation is, let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food, right? So almost on the same lines, thousands of years ago, Ayurveda had quoted that food can be successfully used for therapeutic purpose. I'll give you a very simple example. Is it okay if I go into details? For example, insomnia is quite a common problem today, right? And for every patient of insomnia, it is not really needed that a pill is intaken, right? This approach needs to be changed, pill for every ill. Ayurveda says that just by adjusting your diet, you can overcome some of the diseases. For example, in insomnia, if milk is consumed in the evening or late evening time, that will help to overcome insomnia.
Okay.
And there are many technical details which I'm not going into. For example, which quality of milk? It should be high fat milk. If possible, not cow's milk, but buffalo's milk wherever available. And if you want to have quick results or better results, buffalo's milk plus some sugar. Of course, when Ayurveda says sugar, it is not the chemically bleached sugar like today. But what I'm trying to say here is, for treating some diseases, Ayurveda also explains food as a therapeutic tool. This is the next aspect. There are two more aspects. Is it okay to include now itself?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so there are two more aspects. Ayurveda has its own concept about which food should not be combined with which food item. This concept is called as Viruddha Anna in Sanskrit, in Ayurvedic terminology. Conveniently, it can be translated as incompatible food, which is a very important concept to be known by not just Ayurvedic students, by every health seeker, because incompatible food, if consumed, can invite diseases in future. Okay, so incompatible food is another aspect. There are a couple more if the time allows.
Okay. You will. I have some questions about incompatible food, for example, and do and don'ts. Then you can explain a little bit more about it.
Yes. Maybe
Okay.
after 2 minutes, if it's okay.
Okay.
I'll just complete the list of Ayurvedic aspects.
Very good.
So there are two more aspects which must be understood.
Okay.
One is Ayurveda indicates that if person selects some specific food items and avoids some other food items, that will ensure longevity of the person. That means having more lifespan. That is very interesting. Simplest example is milk and dairy products in general are favorable for longevity. To be more precise, because yogurt will not help for longevity, curd or yogurt will not help, but milk, butter and ghee, which is used in India, which you can call as clarified butter here in Europe. So these three dairy products, Ayurveda mentions that they are favorable for longevity. So this is another aspect. And lastly, which is a must to know in these days, Ayurveda lays down some rules and regulations for food consumption. So it is not that if food is available, we are just free to enjoy it like nothing. It's not good according to Ayurveda. So for maintenance of health, Ayurveda lays down some rules and regulations. This is the last aspect.
Thank you. So, will you enlist food consumption rules according to Ayurveda?
Sure, because it's actually very easy for me, because our great authors in their classic texts have enlisted these rules a couple of millennia ago. So I am just reproducing it. It's very easy for me to discuss, difficult for some of the followers. For example, the very first rule says that one should consume food, means eat or drink, only if one is hungry or thirsty. Okay, please, I request the viewers to make a note, because it's, so to say, very simple rule. But very few people unfortunately follow this, right? So the first rule is eat or drink only when you are hungry or thirsty, right? Second rule is preferably consume food when it is warm or hot. Why? Because Ayurveda believes in the digestive capacities of a person. They are called as digestive fire or Agni in Sanskrit. Agni is hot, intense, dry, etc. So obviously, if the food which we consume is hot, that will ease the digestion process. Right? So the next important rule is consume food when it's warm or hot.
That will be one of my questions about raw food. How you see that is so in fashion now, no? Everybody talks about eating fresh, cold food and natural, no?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is not that Ayurveda says no to such food. There is another group in Ayurveda called Harita Varga, means group which can be consumed in raw form. But there are very few items in that group like garlic, coriander leaves, etc. All others, Ayurveda expects you to cook and then eat.
Okay. Because is that because of the potential of these products of garlic? It's more alive if you eat it raw. That's it.
We can say that, but that's not the only reason, because these food items, they are assimilated comparatively easily, even if we consume them uncooked. But some other food items, if we consume uncooked, then our digestive fire has to act more on it. So it's all about Agni when it comes to Ayurveda, the digestive capacities. So can I continue with the rules? There are a few more. Okay. Yes. So far what we discussed is eat or drink only if you are hungry or thirsty. We also discussed that food should be warm or hot. Next rule is we must consume food in proper proportion. Overeating is not allowed in Ayurveda. Then there are further detailing of this rule. Without going into technicalities, I will just say that there should be some amount of solid food, some amount of liquid food, and some of our capacities should be unused. That means part of our stomach should be kept empty for better digestion. If we eat full by tummy, then it's not good according to Ayurveda. Right? So at least some part of the stomach should be left vacant for better digestion. This is the next rule. One more rule says that there should be at least some unctuousness in the food. For new listeners of this series, unctuousness is a technical word. You can say oiliness here, but unctuousness is a better word. In Sanskrit, it is snigdha. That means there should be at least some amount of oil or ghee in the food. To simplify, if Europeans keep on eating bread without using butter, Ayurveda will not allow it. But as long as you add butter to it, it's all right. Right? Like Indians use ghee with most of the food items. In Mediterranean area, they use olive oil, tahini with hummus, for example, right? So there should be at least some amount of oiliness in your food is the next rule. So to say, there are many rules, but I would like to conclude the rules by saying a very interesting, very important rule and a worth implementing rule. And the rule is, whenever you consume food, you should consume it with full involvement of mind. So I request the viewers to please note, unlike today's patterns of eating, we have earphones in the ear and we are enjoying music. Some business executives are clearing their messages and they are eating. Some others are talking a lot and eating, or laughing a lot and eating. All these things are not good for maintenance of health. So whenever you consume food, you should be fully involved in the food. So these are most of the rules I could say, not all.
Many things to change, to learn. Okay, so how about the do's and the don'ts related to food? You talked about before a little bit.
It's a very big topic, but very important to know. So only the concept I will clear now. And those who are interested can later on contact AMAYUR for other details, like material or courses like that. Why I'm saying this is a big concept? Because Ayurveda, unlike many other sciences, is an individualistic type of medicine. I'll explain. If you go to market and purchase any food container, purposefully I'm using a plain one without any matter. Okay, but suppose you are purchasing something from market, any food item. Obviously, the proteins, carbohydrate, fat contents will be written, right? And vitamin, minerals may also be mentioned. According to some legal rules, provisions, RDA, that is recommended daily allowance, may also be mentioned, right? So with due respect to all these scientific advancements and information, I would like to add one point here from Ayurvedic perspective. Because Ayurveda is an individualistic science, it doesn't say that because this particular food has this combination, proteins, carbs, fats, etc., it is good for all the people on the globe. Are you getting me? So Ayurveda says that the food should be decided based on the prakriti of the person, the constitution, or you can say the dosha dominance, and accordingly do's and don'ts will change. Simplest example is, though we are trying to use technical language here, but if you have heard about pitta dosha, pitta dosha dominated people, or you can say people who are heat and intensity dominated, they should avoid spicy food and sour food. Am I clear enough? So that is the don't for them. It may not be don't for others. For some others who are what we say, Ayurvedic people say Vata dominated people. For newcomers, they can say people who are very thin, who are bloated most of the times, they have burps, flatulence, etc. So in case of those, gaseous drinks or aerated drinks called as sodas in some country are don'ts, means they are not to be consumed, right? So do's and don'ts, they differ as per the dosha dominance, prakriti, but as per the season. In the beginning you mentioned about seasonal regime, right? Some viewers can refer to our previous episodes about seasonal regime also. But for example, do's and don'ts, they change as per the season. Simplest example is, in winter season, we are allowed to drink warm water or hot water. But in summer, it will be a don't. Right? So do's and don'ts also change as per the season. Another example, for those who are non-vegetarians, it is not that Ayurveda says no to the meat. Ayurveda is an open science, a logical science. But Ayurveda says that if it is winter outside, your hunger is better, you can digest it better, so you are allowed to eat meat if you want to, and if you have enough hunger. But in the summer season, because your hunger is not that good, you should avoid meat. So this is also an example of do's and don'ts as per the season. And lastly, as I already said, Ayurveda is an individualistic medicine. So imagine a person gets some disease, some ailment, some health problem. So for that person, him or her, the do's and don'ts will obviously change. again, a very important example is if a person has any kind of swelling, swelling or edema, yogurt must be cut down from the diet, right? So it becomes a don't for those who are having swelling. So this is how Ayurvedic concept of do's and don'ts are, like in today's world, it is called tailor-made, right? So it changes from person to person, depending on the prakriti, disease, and the season outside.
So it's very important to consult someone that
yes,
can help us to understand that.
So though Ayurveda is very logical and it's for all, for maintenance of health, but when it comes to some technical problem, like medical ailment, disease, as you rightly said, it's always better that one should consult an expert before finalizing the do's and don'ts and also the medicines.
Sure, it's very interesting, but a lot to understand. So, which food items are recommended for longevity?
Well, I will say something. According to Ayurveda, the ideal lifespan in this era should be 100 years. But if you quickly go through the global average lifespan, almost nowhere you will find it, right? Due to so many factors, pollution included and fast lifestyle and so many other factors, stress included. We are not able to live the entire lifespan which nature has designed for us. So Ayurveda has a well-developed concept of longevity. There are 8 branches of this great science, and one out of 8 branches is entirely devoted to discuss longevity. So longevity is also a big topic which includes some detox procedures, some medicines, etc. But to supplement all these efforts, Ayurveda recommends some food items which will help longevity. And before I make a list of longevity food, I must warn the viewers, those who are really interested, to be careful about exactly opposite food items which are against longevity, right? So I will quote them first and will end the answer by saying longevity food. Ayurveda believes that 2 tests are specifically triggering the aging process. 2 tests out of the 6. One is sour test, acido or sour test, and second is salty test. Are you with me? So sour and salt, or you can say acidic food and salty food. These 2 kinds of foods, if they are consumed in excess or repeatedly, more frequently, Ayurveda says without any ambiguity that they will invite aging. That means the person will be aging prematurely, right? So these are anti-longevity foods. So to make a list for longevity related food, will obviously exclude excess use of sour and salty taste. This is the first rule, right? Second one is, general rule is dairy products. I know there are different cults about food choices today, like vegan, then ovo and vegetarian, eating eggs plus other vegetarian, then non-vegetarians, etc. And there are much more material available. But Ayurveda doesn't have any ambiguity about the use of dairy products for our health purpose, right? So general rule is dairy products are good for maintenance of our health, provided we follow the rules which we discussed before, like we must eat when we are hungry, etc. But general rule is dairy products are good. But to be more precise, milk, butter and ghee are directly ensuring longevity of an individual, right? And I would like to add one thing here, because it's in Europe. When we say butter for longevity, the butter should be unsalted butter. right? Because we just discussed salt is inviting agent. So if a person consumes butter for longevity purpose, that should be unsalted butter. Okay.
Okay.
So from dairy, these three are the specific foods. I repeat, milk, butter, and ghee. Then general rule is the sweet fruits. There are two kinds, right? Sweet and sour. So the sweet fruits generally increase longevity. Like mango, for example, coconut, grapes, etc. Right? So this is another group of longevity related food. Third and very important group is nuts, or in some parts of the globe they are called as dry fruits, but actually they are not fruits. So nuts is a better word. Like almond, walnut. So some of the nuts, if consumed in small amounts, not in big amounts because they are heavy to digest. So some of the nuts also ensure longevity. Okay.
Okay. According with what you said about soured fruits or sweet fruits, there's a big there's big doubts about that. A lot of people says every fruits are sour, and other people says the fruits are all sweet once they are ready to eat. No, but so there's fruits that are sour and others sweet. Is this thing?
Yes, but I'm not able to understand the question. It is true that some fruits are sour, some fruits are sweet. But as far as longevity is concerned, only sweet fruits will help for longevity.
Fruit. Yes. To distinguish is difficult, I say. To it's knowledge, no? It's studying.
Yeah, so I'll explain. So to say, every fruit passes through all the stages of ripening, right? So when it's in the sweet form, then it is what Ayurveda will believe in, that it is in the state of maturity, right? And in that condition, that fruit will be favorable for longevity. Please note, Ayurveda doesn't say that sour fruits are bad, right? Ayurveda is a science, so it doesn't say anything bad. It's just logic. So we are allowed to eat sour fruits, but in traces, in good amounts, not in too much amounts, and they will not ensure longevity. Otherwise, they are allowed to be consumed.
Okay. Doctor, I have one question. Let's see if I can make myself understandable. So thinking about the three qualities, rajas, tamas, and sattva in food, okay? Can you explain it and relate with the qualities of the mind?
Yes, of course. In fact, sciences like Ayurveda, yoga, and many other Indian sciences, they are based on Indian philosophies, right? The philosophies are called as darshans in Sanskrit. And one of such philosophies called Sankhya philosophy basically put forth the concept of sattva, raja, and tama. Now Ayurveda borrows this concept, accepts this concept, and Ayurveda says that every mind has these three attributes, sattva, raja, and tama. Not just mind, everything which is in existence in this universe has a combination of sattva, raja, and tama. Right? Now, as far as Ayurvedic psychology is concerned, Ayurveda considers that out of these three, sattva, raja, and tama, sattva should be considered as a virtue, right? But raja and tama should be considered as vitiating factors. Means they can disturb the mind, they can even invite diseases in future. Is it clear up to this? It's a bit technical. Okay.
Yes.
So because sattva is the virtue and raja and tama have vitiating capacities, dosha in Sanskrit, right? So Ayurveda obviously recommends that food should be sattva dominated. which is, as you rightly said, which is called as Sattvika food. Right? But let me clarify that this concept is interdisciplinary concept, not precisely quoted in Ayurveda, but it has been borrowed from a very famous Indian text. If I may quote, the name of the text is Bhagavad Gita. It's from Mahabharata, a part of Mahabharata, the epic. So this concept is basically borrowed from Bhagavad Gita about the Sattvika, Rajasa and Tamasa type of food, but applicable to all. Simplest example is meat of any kind, may it be poultry, may it be red meat, like that. Okay, so meat of any kind is necessarily tama increasing food. I will repeat here that Ayurveda doesn't stamp anything as good or bad, but Ayurveda will certainly stamp it as tama dominating food. So if a person is having diseases like obesity, diabetes, cancer, or some of the psychological condition, Ayurveda without ambiguity will say that reduce or stop tama increasing diet like non-vegetarian food.
Yes.
Right?
I will ask you, can you explain the relation between these qualities in the mind and then the mental, psychological diseases? For example, the anxiety, panic, and depression.
It's a very important question in 21st century. The problem is Ayurveda doesn't give one-to-one relation like A equal to B. But I will try to throw some light. As we are discussing Sattva, Raja and Tama, right? So Ayurveda will say that food should be Sattvika. This is the first rule. That means food items like milk, butter, ghee from the dairy group, then red lentil or yellow lentil, if you have heard these terms, they are the pulses or lentils. They are considered as Sattvika type of food. Honey, for example, honey is considered as a Sattvika type of food. Rice is Sattvika type of food, right? So if these things are preferred, of course, it's next to impossible to have only Sattvika food. So please note, it is not next to impossible to have 100% Sattvika food. Okay, but when Ayurveda says Sattvika, that means Sattva dominated food should be there. More items should be Sattvika. Okay, then the spices in general, like black pepper, for example, chili powder, etc. Some such food items, more pungent, etc. Such food items could be grouped under the head Rajasa type of food, right? Or more fried items, etc. They could be put under more Rajasa type. And as I have already said, all the non-vegetarian food, then the food which is cooked last night or 2 days ago and just kept in the refrigerator. Such examples are grouped under Tama dominated food, right? Now coming to your question, precise question, that can Ayurveda help people for psychological conditions like depression, etc. Because again, it's a very big topic, but I will say in brief that yes, certainly Ayurveda will help persons to be able to make their own list of food. For example, for some of the psychological conditions like depression, which includes sadness anyway, Ayurveda will recommend not to have Tama dominated food, have fresh food, preferably cooked on the same day, etc. And light by quality, not heavy by quality, etc. For some other psychological conditions like anger, intensity, like which is called as type A personality in today's terminology, right? People, if they are very aggressive, etc. Ayurveda will say that reduce the Rajasika food or Raja increasing food, right? But these are the general guidelines, because as we have discussed, Ayurveda is individualistic science. It will depend on the person who is suffering from either depression or any other psychological disorder.
Thank you. So, if I think we have time still. Detox or diet are very common words nowadays too, between yogis and the general people. So what is important to observe and analyze before choose a type of diet or a detox to do?
Okay, this is a too technical question, because but the general rule is both of them, either detox or diet, they depend on the basic doshic status of that person, the dosha dominance of that person. So I would suggest that better people should contact your own Ayurvedic experts globally. If they are from Portugal, I think AMAYUR is doing excellent work. AMAYUR has a group of therapists they can contact. They can know their prakruti or their dosha dominance, and accordingly their diet should be designed first. And the detox, which is a generalized convenience translation of the term panchakarma in Ayurveda, which includes 5 procedures, but not all procedures are recommended for all people and in all seasons. So many factors are to be considered, which your Ayurvedic expert will be the right person to do that.
Okay, right. So, and the last one I have is, so after a period of diet or amapachana or panchakarma, this period is very difficult for the person to think what I'm gonna eat now, and how I will not go again to the same habits I had before, because it's very common that the people does, and then they don't know what to eat again. And I will ask you, what is your major advice in order to the person not quit and to keep it focused on what is good for her. What you understand me? What they can do to keep? Yeah.
I think I understood your question, but I will give a one-word answer to this: gradual. Gradual is the answer. That means whatever you do, it should be gradually done. Even if you realize that you have been taking wrong kind of food for many years, you should not immediately stop it. That's very interesting to know. Ayurveda recommends gradual acceptance and gradual sacrifice, right? So even if wrong stuff has been done for long period of time, Ayurveda says that gradually you reduce the wrong things, wrong food habits, and you gradually introduce the good ones, the healthy food habits. Right? So I think this is a one-word answer. Again, your medical expert, Ayurvedic expert will help you with the detailing. But this is a $1 million advice, I will say. Gradual. Don't do the things hurriedly, because they don't last.
Thank you very much. Very kind of Ayurveda, from Ayurveda, graduality.
Thank you. And I hope the viewers will believe in the great wisdom which Ayurveda has. And I hope through AMAYUR, many such awakening videos will be there in future and viewers will be benefited. Thank you.
I believe so. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. No.
Olá a todos! Se quiserem mais informações sobre a Associação Portuguesa de Medicina Ayurveda, poderão contactar-nos através de www.amayur.pt. No nosso site têm disponíveis todas as informações sobre os profissionais de medicina Ayurveda ao longo do país, assim como das entidades formadoras reconhecidas para lecionar os cursos de terapeuta e de técnico de medicina Ayurveda. Para além disso, se desejarem juntar-se à Associação Portuguesa de Medicina Ayurveda, têm 3 categorias de sócios. A categoria de sócio profissional, que pretende defender os profissionais da Ayurveda em Portugal, assim como a categoria de formando, que são todos os associados que estão em formação, e a categoria de amigo, para aqueles que gostam do Ayurveda e que querem que ele cresça em Portugal. Para além disso, também podem adquirir alguns dos produtos disponíveis na associação. Muito obrigada por assistirem ao podcast e continuem a ver.